everybody. So, we got interrupted by the bell when we were reading, so we're going to pick up where we stopped. Jill said, "What's going on?" Because they saw the lady and the man putting X's on trees and tying brightly colored pieces of plastic. "Surveyors," Ben said. "That PDF file you sent me, the diagram of the theme park, they're making it out on the ground. The theater, the parking lot, the twin wharves, everything. Bulldozers and chainsaws come next." He unclenched one fist and pointed at the nearest stake. "That is the beginning of the end." As they walked closer to the building, Jill said, "There was one email I didn't send you last night, because I didn't want you to stay up all night worrying. It's about Lyman." "What about him?" "You know how nosy I am, right?" Ben smiled. "The queen of nosiness." Ignoring that, she said, "So I did some snooping. When my mom went to the town meeting last month, she got a booklet with a list of all the town employees. Lyman's full name is Gerald F. Lyman." "Gerald?" asked Ben. "No, Gerald, Jerrold, which is an odd spelling. And when I put his name into Google, it turns out that there is only one Gerald F. Lyman in the whole United States. And I found stuff." Ben stopped and looked at her. "Like what?" "He was born in St. Louis. He went to an expensive prep school in Chicago. He graduated from Stanford University, then got a business degree in Philadelphia. He owns a house in Newport and a condo in Florida, plus a 60-foot sailboat. The guy's rich. But for the last 4 months, Gerald F. Lyman has been living in a rented room at an apartment house in Edgeport, Massachusetts. And he's working as the assistant janitor at our school. And I'm sure it's the same person. I found pictures." Ben stared at her, his mouth open. "But if oh, whoa, he's a spy." She nodded. "That's what I figured too. He has to be working for Glenley." Ben froze, then grabbed Jill's arm. "Mr. Keene, do you think he told Lyman about the coin and the principal? He has to know know about Lyman too, right? That he's working for Glenley?" Ben noticed he still had her arm and quickly let go. Jill shrugged. "All I know for sure, we've got to watch out, because Lyman's real job is to make sure nothing goes wrong with the deal. And it sounds like he's already suspicious of you. The way he questioned you yesterday, if he figures out that we're up to something, we'll lose the element of surprise, and he'll try to stop us." "Right," Ben said, impressed with Jill all over again, "except for one thing. We don't know what he's supposedly going to try to keep us from doing or finding." The sound of the surveyor's hammer started up again, sharp and jarring. With a grim smile, he said, "But we're gonna figure it out. We have to." "We shouldn't hang out at lunch," Jill said. "Or talk in the halls where Lyman might see us," said Ben. "So I'll see you in math." "Right," he said. "But I'll set my phone to vibrate, and if you get any ideas, sneak me a text. And I'll do the same." Jill smiled. "Good. See you later." "And don't forget," Ben said, "until they rip it down, it's like Captain Oaks said. This place belongs to us." Brave talk, but as Ben followed Jill into the front hall of the school, he felt like they were walking into a war zone. But worse than that, he also started feeling like all this stuff was just plain crazy. Because, really, spies and secrets, it seemed pretty far out, right there at the edge of Nutsville. On the other hand, what if Lyman was really dangerous? Maybe the smartest thing would be to put on the brakes right now, hard, and just not get mixed up in any of it. Whatever was going to happen to the school and the town, let it come. But Ben knew he couldn't walk away. Not now. Because stealing the school from the kids and changing the whole town this way, it just wasn't right. He stumbled on that word. Right? What? Was he suddenly some kind of superhero deciding all on his own what was right for everybody else? And as he stared up the south staircase, he thought, hey, look everybody, here comes Schoolboy, ready to battle the forces of evil. He smiled at that thought, but only for a second, because a different truth hit him. Now there were feelings involved, his feelings. Feelings about this town and about his parents. Feelings about a dead janitor and feelings about a funky old building on the edge of the sea. Even some feelings about Jill. This little war wasn't just about right and wrong, not by a long shot. Now, it was personal. Chapter 9, Research. Ben had library during second period reading. He was supposed to be working on an author study about Jack London, and his partner was Robert Garrett, which meant it wasn't any fun. But that guy was determined to create the best author study in the history of the universe. So at least Ben was sure he'd get an A on the project, whether he did any work or not. By the time Ben got to the library, Robert was already busy comparing 3 different encyclopedia articles. When Ben sat down, he looked up and gave him a big grin. Hey there, Pratt. Had any good nightmares today? Why don't you put your head down and take a little nap? Ben ignored him. Ever since first grade, Robert had acted like he was in this giant competition with everyone else, especially Ben. For the past week, he had been completely obnoxious, and Ben knew why. They both belonged to the Blue Water Sailing Club, and they both sailed in the Intermediate League. With the first race coming up, Robert was trying to psych him out. So, Robert went on, you heard the weather report for tomorrow? Supposed to be blowing 15 to 20 knots at race time, west to east. Perfect conditions for me to do some serious butt kicking. How many times you been out this season? Just once, Ben said. It was freezing. Aw, did your mommy forget to send along hot chocolate for her little Benny? I've been out 4 times, Pratt. Real sailors don't care about the cold. And I am pumped for this race. He thumped a fist on the table so hard that the librarian looked over at him with a frown. Robert was built like a football player, a good 3 inches taller and wider than Ben, but weight wasn't always an advantage out on the water. Ben said nothing and opened his notebook. A minute later, Robert was busy taking notes again, and Ben slipped away from the table to do some independent research. He waited until Mrs. Sinclair wasn't surrounded by kids, then went over to her desk. Do we have any books here about the history of the school? Yes, in fact, we do. Just one. The librarian got up and led Ben to a small collection of books in the reference area. He reached for a big leather-bound book, but she stopped him and pulled it off the shelf herself. This book is quite old, so you'll have to be very careful, and you must sit right here with it, all right? I'll be careful, he said, I promise. So she left him alone, and for the next half hour, Ben was in another world. The title of the book was A Man of the Sea, A School for the Ages. And inside the front cover was a pen and ink illustration of the way the building and the grounds had looked back when Captain Oakes had his ships tied up out front. It's a little picture of the book. The building had been a warehouse then, so the picture showed teams of rough-looking men rolling barrels and carting bales of goods out the wide front doors and up wooden gangplanks onto the ships.